In the small, nondescript town of Edgewater, three young boys named Jake, Ryan, and Tyler decided to sneak out of their houses one fateful summer night. The trio, all around the age of 16, had heard whispers and rumors of an abandoned old quarry located on the outskirts of town, a place said to be haunted by the spirit of a teenage girl who was brutally raped and strangled there 30 years ago. The boys, driven by a mixture of curiosity and bravado, set out into the dark, quiet night with a bottle of cheap liquor and a bag of marijuana. The quarry was located deep in the woods, surrounded by a thick, ominous fog that seemed to swallow up every sound. As they approached the edge of the eerie, desolate pit, Jake and Tyler hesitated, but Ryan, the boldest of the three, urged them forward, insisting that they press on. As they settled into the grass at the edge of the quarry, their nerves were eased by the alcohol and the soothing effects of the marijuana. They began to talk, their voices hushed and whispered, about the girl who was said to haunt the location. "I heard she was murdered by her own father," Tyler said, his voice tinged with fear and excitement. "No way, man, it was some escaped convict that broke into her house and killed her," Jake countered, taking a swig from the bottle. Ryan, who had been listening to his friends with a faint smile on his face, finally spoke up. "You both are wrong. I heard it was a group of guys who snuck her out here to this very quarry and raped and killed her." The three continued to pass around the bottle and the bag of weed, their conversation growing louder and more irreverent as they did. They began to mock the girl and her tragic fate, making crude and disgusting comments, inviting the spirit to show herself and prove she was real. Suddenly, as if in answer to their taunts, a beautiful young girl appeared out of the darkness. She wore a simple white dress, her long, brunette hair cascading down her shoulders. She looked lost and vulnerable as she approached the boys and asked for help. "Do any of you know the way back to town?" she asked softly, her doe-like brown eyes pleading with them for help. Without hesitation, the boys offered to accompany her back to town, inviting her to sit down with them and share in their bottle and weed. The young girl accepted their offer, settling down next to Jake and engaging in their conversation. However, as the night wore on and the effects of the alcohol and drugs began to take hold, the boys' behavior grew increasingly inappropriate. They started to touch and grope the young girl, making lewd comments and gestures. Unzipping their trousers and revealing themselves, they made it clear that they had a far more sinister motive in mind. The young girl, however, did not shy away from their advances. Instead, she seemed to encourage them, teasingly stripping down naked and beckoning them to follow. Entranced and captivated by her beauty and submissiveness, the boys eagerly removed their clothes, and each took their turn engaging in lurid sexual acts with her. However, as the night grew darker and the fog thicker, a sinister and twisted change began to overtake the young girl. Her form began to alter, the soft, supple skin of her body giving way to a sickeningly deathly pallor. The smell of decay and death filled the air, as maggots and insects spilled from her gaping wounds and orifices. The boys, too consumed by their lust and their intoxication, failed to realize the true nature of the creature they had defiled. As they looked down at their own reflections in the quarry water, their eyes caught sight of something even more terrifying than the monstrous form that now towered above them. They saw their fathers, their faces twisted with rage, guilt, and recognition. The girl, now a grotesque specter of her former self, looked down at the boys, her eyes filled with anger, sadness, and unrelenting vengeance. "For the sins of my father," she whispered, as she revealed the true cause of her death. The boys, now suddenly realizing their own father's involvement in her rape and murder, tried to flee, but it was too late. The girl, now filled with a renewed and unstoppable purpose, took her revenge in the most gruesome, imaginable ways. Leaving their naked, mutilated bodies in the open quarry, the girl vanished into the mist, leaving the chilling message carved into a nearby tree trunk: "For the sins of my father." In the days and weeks that followed, the townsfolk were shocked and horrified at the discovery of the boys' lifeless bodies. A somber, heavy cloud seemed to hang over the town, as whispers of the haunted quarry and the vengeful spirit continued to ripple through the community. Yet, no matter how many times the quarry was searched and the story retold, the truth behind the boys' deaths remained a chilling, haunting mystery. a mystery that served as a dark reminder of the sins of the past and the deadly, unstoppable power of vengeance. In the end, the forgotten girl who had been brutally murdered in the quarry 30 years prior had finally received the justice she deserved, and the three young boys who defiled her memory and committed their own sins paid the ultimate price for their transgressions, for the sins of their fathers.